With the last pigs gone, it was a sudden change of job description for the skeleton staff left on duty at Parkville Farmers. Local blokes Tony Field and Len Teague have worked at the pig breeding farm for nearly 30 years. Today they started dismantling the piggery.
There's really nothing else you can say other than yes, it is a sad day.
28 workers have been employed to operate the piggery before owners KR Farms decided to cease production at Scone. The farm opened in 1971. Since then it's been breeding and growing pigs to be sent to the market. In peak production periods, Parkville Farmers housed around 22,000 animals, making it among the biggest breeding farms in New South Wales. The piggery has been a high-profile victim of the drought, the persistent dry conditions making feed too expensive for the operation to remain viable.
The number two issue is the high dollar, which has really flattened the export market, forcing more pigs back onto the domestic market.
The 9 remaining staff members will complete an environmental clean-up of the site during the next 3 months.
Working along with the EPA to eventually come up with a clean bill of health for the site so that it can be presented for sale somewhere around the end of September.
At 84 years old, Betty Cayley has dedicated nearly half her life to the Delando organisation, a charity that finds meaningful jobs for people with intellectual disabilities. Many of those she's helped in the last 35 years gave her a fitting farewell today. Betty led the campaign for Delando to evolve from a school into an employment training and support service for people with disabilities. It now places 49 people into the Newcastle workforce with jobs at the university, laundries and shops.
That makes them very, very valuable and gives them self-esteem. And it's a wonderful thing, that opportunity's there, which never was before. It's there now.
An OAM recipient, Betty has also volunteered for decades at Hunter Carers and Hunter Community College. She leaves all the organisations in great shape.
They'll go on and they'll do very, very well. I know they will. The training's there.
Todd Nardi, NBN News. Tickets have been buzzing through the Cardiff news agency, but the one that counts still hasn't been seen. The winning 8-game ticket bought at Cardiff cost just $8.50, and when the winner turns up, it will pay out $6 million. Since Tuesday night, New South Wales Lotteries has been trying to contact the registered player without success.
We would love for them to come in and we'd love to tell them the news, if not lotteries.
State lotteries say the lucky ticket holder is definitely out there somewhere in the Hunter region.
My son's got 2 at home, so I'll have to have a look at his.
Are you the winner, mate?
If only, mate. I don't think I've got that sort of money in my balance at the moment.
If and when the missing millionaire awakes, there will be plenty of Cardiff locals with tips on how to spend the money.
No, I would look after my wife, my kids, my grandchildren.
Go and check the answering machine on your phone.
Todd Nardi, NBN News.
These are our future rural doctors. 35 selected high school students from as far afield as Broken Hill and Wagga Wagga. The students from years 10, 11 and 12 are planning a career in medicine or health science and are visiting Newcastle for a 2-day workshop this week, which included a tour of Newcastle Uni and the John Hunter Hospital.
I've always liked sort of working with people, and I think it's just fascinating, the scientific side of it, so I think it would be a really rewarding career.
According to the University of Newcastle, rural students need to be encouraged to seek medical training to ensure a stronger rural health workforce. It's hoped country students will return home to practice medicine and help the shortage of rural doctors.
If I was to become a doctor, I'd go back to Moree. City, it's fun and everything for a little while, but then you get sick of it.
Yeah, a couple of years in Sydney or in Newcastle for uni maybe, but then straight back to rural areas, that'd be great.
The workshop is helping to overcome the barriers of distance for the rural students by exposing them to university life and encouraging their interest in medicine. The rural students also visited 2 Sydney universities during their week-long trip.
There's not much scope for rural kids to actually come down to Sydney like every weekend like kids from Sydney can do. So things like this, it's just fantastic.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Just a few months ago, the number of coal ships waiting to load off Newcastle was hovering around the 50 mark. Today, there's just a handful. A range of factors has reduced the delays, among them an increase in the amount of coal carried to the port by train, up from 70 million tonnes to 77 million in the last financial year.
We've done things like change the way in which the trains operate, so drivers now go out, get the coal, come back and are relieved straight away, and that gives them more incentive to come home. They've improved their communications and the guys are really having a go out on the network.
Another major factor has been the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission ruling that coal companies cut back export sales by around 10% so the rail system can cope. It's unclear if the large ship queue will return when the 10% restriction ends in December.
As we move out of December into January, let's assume that the numbers go back up again. By that time, we'll be bringing in additional assets and we'll certainly be able to provide the delivery process. It's only a matter of how the system manages that and whether or not the demand is there for it. We're at the vagaries of the international market.
With representative fixtures now over and the majority of player movements and signings coming towards an end, collectively we all start to look towards the semi-finals, and with only 8 weeks to go in the season in general, well, it's approaching fast. In my opinion, the top 8 will pretty well pick itself. I've selected the Roosters, Bulldogs, Broncos and the Dragons to wrap up the top 4, followed by the Storm, Panthers, Knights and the Raiders rounding off the top 8. Now, the Knights are the only team that I've selected to finish in the 8 who aren't currently there. The Sharks are the team who are sitting in 8th position at the moment, but they do have a very tough run home. Now, the Knights semi-final quest begins on Sunday with a big match against the Broncos at Energy Australia Stadium. In what is a great boost for the club, Steve Simpson returns from injury and he'll play off the bench. But the Knights have a reasonably good run home. Now, after this week, they play the Cowboys, Rabbitohs, Raiders, Sea Eagles, Dragons, Bulldogs and the Tigers, and 5 out of those 7 games will be at home. But the bottom line is clear and decisive for the Knights. They have to win 5 of those games to secure a top 8 finish, and there is no room for slip-ups and certainly no room for any more injuries. Anyway, on to round 19. Can't wait for the Knights game. The Roosters take on the Dragons at Aussie Stadium. We see the NRL's 2 best defensive teams go head-to-head. Now, I'm tipping the Roosters to win this one. On Saturday, 3 games, Panthers, Cowboys and the Storm to win. On Sunday, Warriors, Bulldogs and the Knights to win their games. Look, good luck with your tips. I'll see you all next week.
It's little more than a shell right now, but it's hoped this centre will help ease the GP shortage the town is facing. Cessnock currently has 1 doctor for every 2,500 people, well below the state average. Once completed, the Hunter Health funded facility will cater for up to 6 GPs, and already 1 new doctor is confirmed and negotiations are underway with others.
It's something that we can show potential GPs, we can show them what's already there, and it shows our commitment.
The University of Newcastle has been the driving force behind the project, which aims to link GPs with other healthcare professionals, easing the strain lone workers are often subjected to. That will be made possible through the centre's proximity to Cessnock Hospital.
GPs have appointments at rural hospitals as part of the way they provide care, so it'll make it easier for the GPs who work there to also provide services at the hospital.
It's hoped the new healthcare model will lead to the expansion of after-hours services in the town.
We'll need to look at how many GPs we recruit and how that service works out and what the opportunities are to extend in the future.
The medical centre will be operated by private GPs 5 days a week and should be opened in September. Colleen West, NBN News. It's the second time Taralba residents have fought a proposal for a mobile phone tower, and they hope their actions are as successful as they were 7 years ago when plans for an Optus facility were knocked on the head. Residents claim plans to improve coverage to the area are nothing more than a Telstra money-making exercise. They fear they'll be subjected to harmful electromagnetic emissions and that views will be inhibited, reducing the value of local properties.
The Taralba community's really been used up, by big corporations. We've got a quarry, open-cut mines that are getting closer. We've got a coal washery.
Telstra says it will look at alternative sites for the tower. As for concerns about EME, it says that in 50 years of research, there's been no evidence to suggest that the emissions are harmful. But that's not good enough for this group, which will keep its fight alive with the establishment of a community action group.
The debate is still out on the medical issues, and we don't want our suburb to be the guinea pig.
Colleen West, NBN News.
Even with the Olympics calling, it's never easy for a mother to say goodbye to her son. But Narelle Pittman, along with friends, farewell Jamie, who's about to complete a long journey to the Games.
We're walking out on the stadium in front of all them people. It's been a dream since I was 10 years old.
Controversially missing selection for Sydney, the 22-year-old fought on another 4 years for this chance. That sort of determination also saw him named captain of the 9-man team. And you can bet his actions will speak louder than words.
Yeah, I'm straight into it the day after the opening ceremony, so hopefully I'll kick the boys off with and make them proud, and then they can kick along after me.
The team will train in France for the next 3 weeks before heading to Athens, and while it was an emotional send-off, when he returns, it'll be as an Olympian. Meanwhile, Aventa Rebel Moreau is already in Sydney at a training camp. The team heads for England for their final preparations at the weekend.
As temperatures plummeted, the sea rose, the swell exceeding 5 metres, pounding the Newcastle coastline this morning. The city's ocean baths was a popular spot for brave spectators. While the State Emergency Service advised people to stay inside, there was no stopping one windsurfer on Lake Macquarie. The conditions were less favourable for other craft though. Boats were washed ashore, with anchors simply no match for gusts reaching 90 kilometres per hour. The severe winds also a menace at Port Stephens. Enna Bay Primary School suffered minor damage to a maintenance shed as trees came crashing to the ground, while power lines were brought down across the region. The weather rolled in yesterday, promising relief for the drought-parched Hunter Valley. However, it was a weekend of frustration for farmers as the clouds failed to deliver away from the coast. The top rainfall figure was recorded at Williamtown with 12 millimetres. There was a heartbreaking fall of just 1 millimetre at Scone and even less at Cessnock. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
These angelic voices will be up against the country's best next week during the Australasian Choral Championships in Sydney. Under the baton of Khalil Karwa, Jules Primary School Choir, primarily song, is made up of 46 Year 5 and 6 students and boasts a wealth of performing experience, including recording 2 CDs. And preparing for a national title is a big commitment.
I know we'd all rather be good and come in on days like this than go on nationals and have no clue what we're doing.
Because I like singing and it's fun.
We'll probably go pretty good. Like, we're not that bad. Probably.
At the other end of the school hall, it was the turn of the aerobics teams to make every step count. A remarkable 5 school teams have been chosen to compete at the National Aerobics Championships on August the 21st in Adelaide. It's the 8th time Jules Primary has been represented.
We see children that do well at aerobics that then, it overlaps into other areas of their schooling with their confidence and also coordination and their physical fitness.
Two of these large date palms are thought to be the ones stolen from Swansea near Newcastle 5 weeks ago. They've been transplanted next to the old Toowoomba Courthouse, which is now a residential development. They're right next door to the town's old police station, a few hundred metres away from the existing police station, and a stone's throw from the new regional police headquarters, which is under construction. People at Swansea fighting to have the trees returned can't believe it.
Well, I thought that was hilarious, but it's not a joke.
The palms, worth about $7,000 each on the black market, were stolen from this reserve at Swansea. A landscaping company from the south coast is the suspect.
They've only got to go down to the south coast. The fellow, the landscaper, lives down there, and they haven't been in there to even interview him.
Belmont police say they're hoping to travel to the south coast to speak to the suspect in the next 10 days. We'll keep you posted on the developments. Meantime, 15 mature fig trees are being removed in Newcastle. The council says the veteran trees in Tyrrell Street pose a threat to public safety and will be replaced with mature trees of a different species. Other large figs in Civic Park and Lehman Street have been deemed safe for the time being. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
3 employees of Williams Chemist were robbed just before 8 last night when a man wearing a balaclava and brandishing a knife ran into the Pacific Highway business. He demanded cash and medication before escaping with the proceeds of the hold-up. Despite a police dog joining the search for the bandit, he managed to elude the manhunt.
In the art world, he's the king of pop. Andy Warhol has been the most influential figure in the pop art movement, taking inspiration from the imagery of popular culture. His iconic images of Marilyn Monroe and the humble Campbell's soup cans have become instantly recognisable worldwide.
We have the very famous can of Campbell's soup. There's 10 of them. Anything from beef consommé to onion to tomato. We have the Marilyn Monroe series. We also have Chairman Mao. They're incredibly bold, colourful works.
And it's a major coup for the Newcastle Region Art Gallery to exhibit the collection of 80 screen prints. It's one of only 4 galleries in Australia to be selected and the only gallery in New South Wales.
We want to get the national collection out there so that people have access to it, so that they can see these works without having to travel to Canberra necessarily.
Andy Warhol was fascinated by fame and frequently borrowed from sources such as the photographs in sensational tabloids or magazines.
He wanted his face to be known as well as Mick Jagger, for example, or Chairman Mao, for example, or Marilyn. And I think he was really attracted to the whole cult of celebrity and what made people famous.
And while his art immortalised the likes of Marilyn Monroe, ironically Andy Warhol became the first artist to reach celebrity status. The exhibition will remain on display until September 19. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
A lot has changed in Newcastle since Paul Rohihi last wore the red and blue, but he's always remained a consistent performer, both at the Bulldogs and now the Cowboys. With season-ending injuries to some bigger names, Rohihi has answered his coach's call to the letter.
Makes you feel good about yourself, I suppose, that, you know, when the pressure's on that you can sort of step up a bit.
He always does against his old team, giving as good as he gets. And he's looking forward to catching up with old teammates again, both on and off field.
You know you can have a good hard game and there not be any hard feelings after the game.
The same can be said for Cowboys coach Graham Murray, who's hoping to get one over old Mariners mate Michael Hagan.
And I don't think I've beaten Mick yet. You know, last time we beat the Knights, you know, he wasn't in charge basically. So I'd like to get one up on him at least.
Both teams sit just outside the 8 with a win vital to finals aspirations. Jim Callanan, NBN News. A winning treble for anyone is a good night out, but for Michael Formosa, last night was extra special, with wins in race 2 and 5. When he saluted the judge in the 7th with Beatrice Lane, it took the driver's winning tally to 62 for the season, 2 better than the previous best for the Hunter Valley. And with 10 meetings left, his final tally could well take some chasing. Not bad for a guy lucky to be walking after a horror fall seriously injured his neck 6 years ago. Tomorrow night, 2 of the best pacers in Australasia renew their rivalry at Newcastle, with reigning Inter-Dominion champion Joe Fess to start against former Grand Circuit champion Double Identity. They starred on the same track 2 years ago in a memorable finish in the $50,000 Newcastle Mile. In Newcastle Rugby League, most interest centres on tomorrow night's match at Wyong, where Cessnock must win to keep its title defence on track. It's 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4 in a big round of Newcastle and Hunter Rugby Union, with East hosting the Waratahs and Wanderers playing the Hawks tomorrow. And the ladder leaders do battle in the NBN Soccer League on Sunday, with Edgeworth heading to Bear Country to meet Western.
We agreed to do that on the basis that some of the sound attenuation walls would be expanded. There would be tighter control over the public address system to the extent that some of the volume and speaker sizes were reduced.
Since the addition of cut-price airlines Jetstar and Virgin Blue, Newcastle Airport says the number of passengers using the airport has skyrocketed. In June last year, there were 15,000 passengers compared to 42,000 in June this year. But the existing terminal, which is the gateway to the Hunter, is now cramped and in need of a major upgrade.
Because we've had a doubling in passenger numbers over recent times, we'll be doubling the size of certain areas of the terminal. And that will include a doubling of the departures area so we can simultaneously depart 2 larger jet aircraft.
After 2 hours of debate, Newcastle City Council last night approved a $4 million loan for the airport upgrade.
The airport is the gateway. It's one of the key economic drivers of this region, and we need to make sure it has every opportunity to expand and flourish.
The Lord Mayor says he had no hesitation in lending the money.
Well, we always want to make sure that it will be paid back, but it's covered more than adequately by the assets of the Newcastle Airport Limited company, and it is a good investment in terms of the fact that we're investing in our own infrastructure.
Port Stephens Council has also kicked in $4 million towards the $8.25 million expansion, which will include an extra baggage claim unit, more restaurants and a larger departure and arrivals terminal. A separate 60-room hotel development, which was first lodged with Council in 2000, is still on the cards.
We'll probably see a lot of activity out here during the course of the next year, the hotel included, we hope.
Work on the expansion is expected to start later this year and be complete by this time next year. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. There's more unrest in our state schools. This time it's our school and TAFE cleaners who have become the target of state government funding cutbacks, and they're not happy. Their gripe, the Carr government's inability to guarantee their jobs for next year. The state government has proposed to increase the number of cleaning contractors from October next year. Union representatives say incoming contractors will be free to sack the entire workforce and replace them with new cleaners. More than 1,000 people are employed as cleaners in Hunter schools, TAFEs and government organisations. Some of them marched to Bryce Gaudry's office this morning in the hope he'll take a stand against Premier Bob Carr's proposal. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Rarely a feature of golf fashion, the beanie was a valued accessory today as wind gusts reached 96 km per hour at Horizons Golf Resort. The leading score yesterday was even par 72, and conditions this morning pointed to even higher second round scores at the State Trainee Championship. Joint overnight leader and defending champion Martin Joyce had a task just finding a fairway, but the Victorian remains the man to chase, finishing with 73, one over par on top of the leaders board. 5 shots behind is Jake Nagle after shooting the round of the day and even past 72. Meanwhile, Maitland's Vicky Tutt is a clear leader in the women's draw and has the men rattled as well. After starting today's round with 3 consecutive bogeys, Tutt rallied to finish at 4 over. She's sitting third after day 2. Most birdies on course were of the feathered variety, and Brady Sherwood was the big victim, a 7 over par 79, costing him a share of the overnight lead. The Sydney golfer's final putt, a rare highlight.
This wind just counteracts anything that goes against it, so it's really tough.
Also making the cut at the completion of round 2 was big-hitting Belmont golfer Kurt Lind. He's 13 shots off the pace after rounds of 80 and 78. The field of 120 players has been slashed in half for Thursday and Friday's final rounds. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
The heritage-listed Morpeth House has stood on this site since the 1830s, but soon the grand old building and its grounds could be developed into a retirement village. The plans were put on display today for the first time to gauge public opinion, and already there are reservations from locals about the density of the development and the impact on the heritage value of the site. But the developers maintain that all the heritage buildings will be preserved and the architecture of the new respite care centre and 190 freestanding homes will be in keeping with the historic surroundings.
All the heritage buildings on the site will be maintained. There'll all be vast amounts of money spent on them to bring them up to date.
Dobler Consultants will buy the 26-hectare site from the Anglican Diocese if their development application is approved, but the diocese will retain ownership of Closebourne House. Bruce Hockman, the manager of the Anglican Diocese, today said there's much merit in the proposal. In fact, he believes it will enhance the heritage value of the site. The DA is yet to be lodged with Maitland City Council.
Before we submit anything to Council, we need to know that the Heritage Council of New South Wales is absolutely happy about us.
It was Holden parking only in the street outside Newcastle's Crown Plaza this morning. A fleet of new VZ Commodores and a few WL Series Caprice models ready to face the scrutiny of 21 New Zealand motoring journalists. Not surprisingly, the new cars didn't attract a crowd of the curious. The external changes are relatively minor. However, it's what's under the bonnet that makes this model a major milestone for the long-running Commodore. The old V6 engine, used by Holden for 16 years, but originally designed in the 1960s, has been replaced by a completely new overhead cam V6 that puts out more power and is claimed to be more economical. Even less obvious are some of the clever electronics, which Holden claims puts the increased power on the road more safely. An electronic stability control system juggling the brakes and power to keep the car online even where a driver has misjudged a corner.
It's got a number of strategies that it can use to correct the vehicle path, and it's all sort of based on that ABS and traction control type technology, but just taking it to another level.
A 6-speed manual transmission and a 5-speed automatic are new options. Holden says the average price increase across the range has been held at 1%. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
Unloading precious cargo, the gift wrapping may have left a little to be desired, but the prize was the most important thing, the Etchells World Cup. And Peter McNeil will soon have his name etched on a trophy boasting previous winners like Ian Murray and Dennis Conner of America's Cup fame, the latter finishing 5th this time around.
We've been in the class for probably over 20 years now, and like I say, about 12 or 13 worlds, and
now we finally won it. Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Racing a borrowed boat, it got the royal treatment today, as he may have to use it again with a title defence already scheduled for San Francisco. But he has at least a year to savour this win.
Peter McNeil, world champion. Sounds a good ring to it.
Yeah, it does, yeah. Something I can live with.
To racing, and impressive 3-year-old galloper Fastnet Rock will have to wait a little longer to break his maiden after an incredible finish in the Group 2 San Domenico Stakes at Randwick on Saturday. Returning from a spell, the Paul Perry-trained colt put in a great run, only to be denied its first win by Charge Forward. Incredibly though, his earnings are now more than $340,000. In Premier League hockey, Norths took a while to break through but went on to score a 6-0 win against West and move within 2 points of second spot. Wins also for Norths, Maitland and the Entrance. Yet another plane load of talented Aussie athletes will be flying to Greece this year. It won't be quite on an Olympic scale, but when a group of Hunter futsal players step onto the court in Athens, it will be a career highlight.
Post-Olympics, they've won the European Championships, it will be crazy.
The Hunter has had a modest number of futsal players represent their country in the past. This time an amazing 26 boys and girls have been picked in national teams from under 12s through to 17s.
A couple of years ago we only had 5 children chosen for the Australian team, and over the last 2 years the exposure and the realisation of what a great sport it is, it's just gone boom.
Slightly different to indoor and field soccer, futsal has 5 players on each team and uses a heavier ball to promote stronger footwork and skills. The number of registered players in the Hunter has tripled to more than 2,000 in the last 2 years, and some think it may one day even rival the outdoor game.
I still play outdoor soccer, but when I'm not playing outdoor soccer, it's straight into futsal and training and that to go overseas.
Lambton High student James Soldas is one of the most experienced futsal players in the region. At 16, he's already been picked in 3 national teams. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
The watering hole and riot that marked its closure in 1979 may be history, but the reincarnation of this site could see a star of a different kind rise on the landmark piece of real estate. While its owner has Newcastle Council approval for a 12-storey residential and commercial development, he's now placed the site on the market.
It's a DA-approved site for 76 apartments with 2 pieces of commercial space. And I suppose in many respects the developer's actually testing the market to just see what level of interest is in it out there.
There's expected to be plenty of interest in the Star complex because it not only includes the hotel property, but a total of 2,321 square metres of land stretching between Newcastle's pivotal transport arteries, Hunter and King Streets. The decision to call for expressions of interest in the Star site after gaining council approval for redevelopment isn't unusual, with several other prominent pieces of inner Newcastle real estate also currently up for sale.
Whilst there are a number of development sites in the marketplace, there are very few that are actually development approved, and of course in Newcastle there's still strong demand for apartments in the inner city.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
With over 1,000 wines to be judged and just 23 trophies on offer, it has to be one of the toughest wine shows in the country. 2 new trophies will be awarded this year, one for the best current vintage Verdelho, the other named after Murray Tyrrell for his work in developing the Chardonnay.
The story goes that Murray hopped the fence and pinched a Chardonnay cutting from his neighbour, which I think from memory was Penfolds or somebody like that, and took it home and decided that he would do something more with this particular variety.
Only wines made from at least 85% of grapes grown in the Hunter Valley are eligible, the drops judged on their colour, aroma and most importantly, taste.
This is a 2004 Chardonnay, which as you can see by the colour is very young. So even though we spit, and I didn't get your boot, even though we spit, there is still enough of the wine in the mouth to get the flavour of that particular wine.
For the Hunter's winemakers, the entire year boils down to this show, and although some favourites are emerging, the winners will be made public later this week. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
The roundabout at the intersection of Newcastle Road and Thomas Street, Wallsend, is ranked number 65 on the NRMA Insurance Top 101 crash sites for last year. While not considered a problem in recent years, 32 reported incidents during 2003 saw the roundabout secure a place on the blacklist. According to the insurance company's figures, it's not uncommon for motorists to come to grief at roundabouts and merging lanes.
The Patriotic Youth League doesn't hide from the fact it's been running a campaign at Newcastle's Callaghan campus with slogans such as Australian universities for Australian students. However, it does deny involvement with propaganda, urging women not to have sex with black men and any link with the American organisation named on the poster.
Absolutely deny that. We're not too sure who's done it, and we would crucify whoever, stood up such posters and stuff like that around campus. We don't like that. We don't support it.
There is obviously propaganda around. We know that that's the case. We know that the Patriotic Youth League had a stall at Orientation Week.
The Youth League says the group's campaign isn't racist, but the nationalist movement does believe there are too many uni places given to international students.
But at the end of the day, we'd like to see, a greater proportion of university places given to Australian students, since this is our country and our nation, this is Australia.
30 of the Patriotic Youth League's 50 members are in Newcastle, with members also on the Central Coast, in Sydney and Victoria. The movement's website says the gravest threat facing Australia is the divisive and socially destructive concept of multiculturalism.
And we believe that. We believe in a multicultural world that's secured by borders. That's a nationalist thing.
Todd Nardi, NBN News.
The ball just doesn't seem to be bouncing Newcastle's way of late, with a raft of players ruled out today.
The players that we were hoping might come up have all been ruled out basically, so I guess if you're talking Josh Perry, Matt Parsons, Andrew Price.
That leaves an injured Clint Newton to start in the front row.
We're not going to be the biggest side, but hope we can make up for that in other areas.
The skipper has his own dramas with a foot infection, but the side's real test tomorrow night will be in depth.
Yeah, no question that it's a difficult assignment for our blokes, some of which haven't played a lot of first grade, but that's the opportunity they've been given and that's what they're there for.
In contrast, the Dragons are at odds as to who to leave out. Lance Thompson will make his way back from injury to start off the bench in a side chock full of confidence and talent. That said, the Knights aren't backing down from this fight.
It's definitely for the fans, and we can play well. It's just we want to get some confidence if we do miss out in the semis for next year, and finish the year off strong. And
Robbie O'Davis couldn't agree more as the clock winds down on his NRL career.
It's disappointing, probably because my body's feeling so good at the moment to even think about retirement.
This architect-designed building is the latest addition to Singleton's civic precinct. When you walk into the foyer, you could be forgiven for thinking you've arrived at a five-star hotel. However, it's the town's new library. While the computer age and the internet have a more prominent role, this library has also been designed to maintain some links to its predecessor, so Singleton residents feel at home.
You'd often walk out and see a dad on the floor reading to the children, and I really didn't want to lose that. We were really careful to try and keep that in the new library.
There are 7,000 members of the Singleton Library, and they participated in Council's extensive consultation process to plan what services would be included in the new building. All ages have been catered for, including adults, teenagers, and those just getting a taste for what libraries have to offer. The new library also fulfills other roles like providing the exhibition space for the Civic Art Collection and includes meeting rooms to increase conference facilities in the town.
The small one accommodates at least 8, the large one at least 30, and a training room with 11 PCs, one for a trainer and 10 people.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
They say diamonds mark a 75th wedding anniversary, and if that's the case, Joe and Vera Holmes really are forever. Married in 1929 at the onset of economic depression, Joe, an English-born mine worker, and his new wife Vera were about to face what would be a real test of marriage mettle. They jumped that hurdle, going on to create a life for themselves in the Newcastle suburb of Charlestown, putting everything they had into a marriage that survived much longer than many people do.
Hard work, so father says, good living, good family.
Do you fight?
No, no. We don't fight, do we? He moans a lot.
Joe turns 99 next week. Among his daily rituals, drinking a bottle of stout. That is, of course, when he's given the all clear. Who's boss?
Who's the boss, Joe? Who's the boss here? Who's the boss?
I don't know.
Me.
Oh, well, sometimes I think you are.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
There was a gentle breeze blowing for today's sessions in the access dinghies at Sailability Belmont. The small, stable boats have given thousands of people with disabilities the chance to experience the thrill of sailing. Competition will be stiff, though, on the October long weekend when Belmont hosts the Australian and international titles with sailors from all over.
He's from Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, France, England, US. Yeah, it's going to be a great event for us.
Rickshaw's Hot Rod and Custom Car Club today chipped in $4,000 towards the event, with $1,000 from author Fred Thomas, who recently launched a book about the lake's characters. Donations from Lake Macquarie Yacht Club and Tony Mowbray will also go towards the regatta. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
If you take a look around Newcastle's townhouses and apartment complexes, you'll notice an obvious lack of socks, shirts and sheets on balconies. In fact, washing is nowhere in sight. But the case of the missing washing is no mystery. Strict body corporate rules prohibit laundry from being in view, all for the sake of aesthetics. Residents must instead use a clothes dryer, and according to environment educator Fran Bilby, that's certainly not energy smart.
Oh, well, obviously it's better to use solar dryers. I hang them outside. Even people in apartments can get small areas that they can use for most of the time and save a lot of energy that way.
According to Energy Australia, using a clothes dryer can add hundreds of dollars to your energy bill each year, not to mention the damage it's doing to our environment. And there are health benefits in drying your clothes naturally in the sun.
The sunshine, it kills all sorts of bacteria and airs out your clothes, and particularly sheets and towels.
Newcastle City Council is holding workshops on sustainable living at home. They suggest installing water-saving shower heads, fitting compact fluorescent globes and checking fridge seals. The next free workshop will be held on September 14. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
If it put it in the fridge door and close it, if it slips out, then
It may not look like much damage, but the smell is difficult to miss. The unbearable stench infiltrating the entire boutique. At 11 o'clock last night, a white powdery substance thought to be fertiliser was sprayed through lilies at Charlestown in what's been described as a cruel, senseless act.
When we opened the doors this morning, it was just, the smell was unbelievable, and on entering the shop we realised that something had been sprayed under the front and back doors. The smell smells something like a chemical fertiliser perhaps, not really sure at this stage, but it's being tested.
Police believe the substance was pumped through a hose under the doors, causing thousands of dollars damage to stock. The clean-up effort was underway today, large fans attempting to rid the designer clothes of the stench. And it's not the first time the fashion store has been targeted. 4 months ago, red dye was sprayed through their Charlestown and the Junction stores in the same way. That attack causing $30,000 damage. The staff are still coming to terms with the attack. They haven't ruled out a personal vendetta.
It's highly unlikely because, I mean, as I said, we're in an industry where we serve people, we look after people, and hopefully anyone that did have a personal vendetta would actually approach us first and not really go to these lengths. I can't see what anyone would gain from doing it.
Security vision will be analysed by detectives. Charlestown Police are appealing for information. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
focused on a must-win match against the wounded Bulldogs, but the Knights couldn't help sparing a thought for teammate Clint Newton and his 12-week suspension.
But he'd obviously be very disappointed and shattered as he was when it happened, and I guess he's got to deal with that now, and be pretty patient as far as next year's concerned.
The poor bugger's going to spend a long off-season with no game to play for sort of 10 weeks or so. So yeah, it's very disappointing for him.
Newton's out, but that man Steve Simpson is back. With coach Michael Hagan desperately short on forwards, the second rower was rushed into the team after passing a fitness test this morning. Simpson spent 14 weeks on the sideline with a foot injury earlier this year, and in his comeback match against Brisbane 4 weeks ago, broke his jaw. It was originally thought he would be out for 7 weeks. The former international admits the jaw isn't quite 100%, but he is confident of making it through the match.
I think it's the first time you get the ball and first time you make a tackle, it'll get out of the mind then, mate, and you'll be just worried about making the next play. So, yeah, it'll be fine.
Matt Parsons and Andrew Price will spend this week on the sideline after both failed this morning's fitness test, while Adam Woolno's fitness will be assessed as late as tomorrow afternoon. Thankfully, one Newcastle front rower has been cleared to play the Bulldogs. Josh Perry has overcome a hip injury. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
A stop at Raymond Terrace wrapped up a 4-day North Coast run for the opposition leader. John Brogden joining his Hunter Upper House members Patricia Forsyth and Robin Parker for an insight into the Carr government's performance as landlord from Housing Department tenant Margaret Paul.
You'll find that most of the brickwork and that is like it. Yeah.
No Newcastle stop today, but he'll be pressing flesh in the city soon.
I'll be back in a month's time. That's the answer to that question.
And he already has questions for Premier Bob Carr on the delivery rate of the Newcastle health strategy, like why the Newcastle Polyclinic site is still empty and the Marta redevelopment hasn't progressed to construction.
Well, he's had a golden flow of money coming through the door from things like stamp duty and GST. There's no reason that he shouldn't be delivering.
And the Health Minister is being called to account.
Morris Emmett ought to stand up in Parliament and let the people of the Hunter Valley know where the health funds are.
And as far as the opposition's concerned, the now failed Ausdale project still has life, albeit with the Corruption Commission.
I have asked, and I'm waiting for the ICAC to look closely at all of the issues relating to the government's involvement in the Ausdale project.
Gary Blair, NBN News.